Localized super wild card reactions, how the Texans were impacted. I know we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but plus the final sleep before the Steelers and a lot to get into. We'll also hear from old Nick.
Nick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do it
It's the
live.
Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker Room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize. Every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city.
It is the Locker Room. What a super wild card weekend we have. And around here, it's going to be concluded with the Texans. It is the number one source for Texans digital content. I am Landry Locker. You see me, hear me here Monday through Friday, 10:30. Also on SNL with Cody Stutes, Monday through Friday, 4 o'clock. Although special edition at 2 is the Texans cap off a week that was just absolutely insane. This was one of... This was as good of a wild card weekend as I can remember, and from a local perspective, I would say the Texans. I know we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but we only can react to what's in front of us. I would say the Texans have things shaped up pretty nicely for them, and there's a lot of takeaways that we can have from this. We'll go through each game and we'll localize it. We'll also hear from old Nick Caley, who a lot of people are a little concerned about.
Nick.
And you might also be a little even more concerned based on something that just happened not too long ago when it comes to Nick Caley. But the Texans got the Steelers tomorrow. They're going on the road. It's Monday night. Road teams in the Super Wild Card, 3-2 so far. We've seen some most of these games have been extremely competitive with the exception of the New England Chargers game. The Chargers, just the offensive line could not hold up. And now the Texans will have to go to New England if they beat the Steelers. And something's going to have to give when the Texans do go to Pittsburgh. We'll react to the wild card stuff, but let's keep our eyes on our own paper before we take them off in a second. Something's going to have to give because there's a lot of streaks. There's a lot of streaks. I don't even know if they're trends. I don't even know if they're relevant. We'll go through each one, but there's a lot of things that, whether it's a recent history and not so recent history, there's a lot of things that at least deserve a little bit of attention when it comes to the Monday night showdown tomorrow between the Texans and the Steelers. And the first one is this: Mike Tomlin has never lost a home game on Monday night. That's crazy. He's never lost a home game on Monday night. Pittsburgh hasn't lost since 91 at home on Monday night. I can't explain this. I can't minimize this. I think it's kind of crazy because Pittsburgh does play a lot of Monday night games. It feels like, but Mike Tomlin, despite the fact he's had some mediocre ass squads, and some would say that Pittsburgh's kind of been on a mediocre-ish treadmill with no real massive ceiling. I think Mike Tomlin's done a good job, but nobody's going to sit here and act like Pittsburgh's some powerhouse. They haven't lost on Monday night since 91, and it's never happened to Mike Tomlin. So that's interesting. Another one, the Texans have never won a road playoff game. Now, this is the first time that they've started the playoffs on the road. They've never been to the AFC Championship, so this doesn't really surprise you. They've never won a road playoff game. D'Amico Ryans and C.J. Stroud are 0-2 in road playoff games at Baltimore in year one and at Kansas City last year. Now, the good news is, though, D'Amico and Stroud are 2-0 in the wild card round. So they've never lost in the wild card round, and they've put on some pretty impressive displays. They've actually kicked the other team's ass. Cleveland, after beating them in the after Cleveland roughing them up in the regular season, the Texans handled their business, and they roughed up the Browns. And then the Chargers last year, the Texans were actually dogs, and they kicked their ass. So they've never won a road playoff game, but D'Amico and CJ have not only never lost in the wild card through 2 years, they've put on some impressive displays, and they've made opposing quarterbacks look pretty pedestrian, to say the very least. Now, here's the other thing. I'm telling you, these are some crazy trends. These are some crazy stats. These are some crazy facts. But here's the other thing. The Steelers, despite the fact they haven't lost on Monday night since 91, they've lost 5 straight playoff games. Their last playoff win was in 2016. 2016. That was the year that Brock Osweiler was the quarterback for the Houston Texans. Bill O'Brien was the coach. Patrick Mahomes wasn't even in the NFL. So that's a cool streak going back to 91. Pittsburgh Steelers haven't won a playoff game. If they lose this one, they'll have at least a 10-year streak of not winning a playoff game. And not only that, they've gotten pretty dominated in all of those, at least the most recent ones. So those are the facts with the Texans and the Steelers heading into the postseason. I want to react to Wildcard Weekend. First, I want to just say something that I'm thankful for, because we're going to hear from Nick Caley in a second. I asked Nick Caley a couple of questions. His media availability was interesting. I think he's probably the most polarizing, perhaps important guy on this squad. But I want to touch on something involving Nick Caley. First, let's go to the chat and let's shout out the sponsor of playoff coverage in the Houston football community, Locker Room and SNL. Let's shout out the greatness of TDECU, the official credit union of SNL, and CJ Stroud, among many others. You can get that Texans new debit card by going to tdecu.org/Texans. Get that debit card, get 15% off team gear in stores. It's one of the best establishments in town. Shout out to the greatness that is TDECU. Just an unbelievable experience to have them riding along with us.
Swarm.
All right. So on the chat, Kristen Roscoe, shout out to you, my friend, says, that's our best kid. Go Texans. Love the show. The Chris Ballard, that's our best kid. It lives on. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Cougar 6871 says, random, but do you remember when it was Colts week and Cody acted like Warren was head over heels better than Loveland? LMAO, Loveland is honestly better. We had this conversation. It's funny you say this. I was talking to Cody on the phone yesterday, and I was shocked that the Bears did not take Tyler Warren too. I thought Tyler Warren was, when Daniel Jones was in, Tyler Warren was on a completely different level. I think he kind of fell off as a quarterback play did. But I thought Warren was for sure the best tight end, but the Bears have found a way to use Loveland. And if Ben Johnson was trying to duplicate his Sam Laporta in Detroit, he appears to have done a very nice thing. That kid is absolutely balling, nearly $1.5 billion receiving the other day. So yeah, Loveland's playing very excellent. I think they're both good players. I would take either one. I would take either one of those guys. But Cody liked Loveland. He just liked Warren more. He was a draft Loveland if he falls to the Texans guy, but he liked him. But we'll hear from Nick Caley in a sec. Let's localize the reaction of the wild card weekend, and let's go game for game, because I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned here that the Texans can perhaps take with them. We'll hear from Nick Caley in a sec, but let's just start with the first game of the weekend, and that was Rams versus Panthers, and the Panthers gave the Rams quite the scare. And at the end of the day, whatever had happened, the first 58, 57 minutes of the ball game, it didn't matter, because Matthew Stafford just completely wiped that away and did what he's done a few times, and then the Panthers ended up going down in glorious defeat. This was an example here, and I think this is kind of similar to what the Texans will be dealing with tomorrow, where the inferior football team gets home field advantage because they win the division. And in Carolina, it seemed to make a difference. Like they were very loud. I don't know where Carolina stacks up, like when it comes to environments. I've seen them like in the 90s when they were making runs. I know when they upset the Cowboys and then they went to a conference championship, that place was popping. I hadn't seen it pop lately. In fairness, there hasn't been much for them to get excited about. It seems like the last time they had playoff success was with Cam Newton, but that place brought it, and I think it made a difference in this ball game. So expect that and more tomorrow in Pittsburgh. And it's just one of the things, I don't want to call it a travesty, but the reality is the Rams are a better football team than Carolina, but because Carolina won their division, they had the home field advantage, and that made a big difference, I think, in this game. You could just kind of feel the electricity. So that was takeaway one. Takeaway two, and this just drives me nuts. And I actually want to take a second here to just say, and I'll bring this back up. I am very thankful that the Texans don't over gimmick fourth downs. I don't know. It's not analytics. Like, people got to quit saying it's analytics. No, it's just a decision to do it. They're not basing this off of anything. And there's so many variables in these situations. In this game, this Carolina game, it completely flipped because the Rams missed a fourth down. And that was the turning point of the game. Instead of taking the points, they missed a fourth down. It damn near cost them the ball game, but Matthew Stafford was able to bail them out. I old school, whatever, all that. Like, a lot of times you kind of roll your eyes when you hear about old school. I am glad that the Texans do not gimmick fourth downs the way some of these coaches do. And that'll be a theme throughout these obs. It is the localized observations from Super Wildcard Weekend. We'll get into the Texans as well. We'll hear from Nick Caley, and we'll also move a step ahead. And I'll just say it. I think the Texans got a favorable draw, but there's also concerns about a potential matchup with New England. So maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves, but that's what we're here for. So the fourth down risk, beyond geeks, it's just silly. It's so stupid, and it's beyond stats. There's no analytics. It's almost like a copycat thing. Like, have you ever seen, like, some styles? Like, there are certain people, and I thought football coaches would be above this. Fortunately, D'Amico Ryans is, but there are certain people that, if a trend started where you take a crap in your hand and slap it on your face, a lot of people would do it because it's stylish. And that's what's happened with this fourth down crap. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. It's stupid. It's reckless. I am very glad that the Texans don't do that, because I would probably pull my hair out if I had to watch that. Next thing, I think Bryce Young can ball. I know that CJ Stroud was the pick that probably Carolina would make if they had it to do over again. But they traded all of their draft picks, and they didn't have good cap situation. They didn't hire the right coach. And for a while, Carolina was a dumpster fire. They were a historically bad defense last year. Now they have a good defense. If they would have drafted Lab McConkey instead of Leggett, they would really be cooking. I'm not going to sit here and say the Bryce or bust. There's like a reemergence, because I was a Bryce Young guy. I think Bryce Young in the Houston surroundings, although they're not perfect, I think the story would be much different for him. But the guy showed that he can play. There was doubt about that earlier in the year, but I think Bryce Young showed that he can play. And if you look at the 2-year window of teams needing quarterbacks, sometimes you're shit out of luck when it comes to trying to find a quarterback. If the draft doesn't offer it. But the teams that were looking for quarterbacks in 2023 and 2024 at the top of the draft, they got to feel pretty good about themselves. Carolina feels good about Bryce. Texans feel good about CJ. Bears feel good about Caleb Williams. Drake May might be the best quarterback in the playoffs in New England. And then Jaden Daniels, I know he had a down year, but I don't know that they're completely giving up on him. So it was a nice 2 years to be at the top of the draft looking for a quarterback. But I think Bryce can play. The other thing, and I think this is a lesson to look at when it comes to the Texans, like the warts that you have during the season and the extreme weaknesses, they appear in clutch situations in the playoffs. And that is the epitome of the Van Gundy theory that I practice religiously on this channel and throughout my entire broadcast career since I heard him say it. Don't ignore in victory what you would not ignore in defeat. And the Rams have had a disastrous situation in special teams all season long. They had to fire their special teams coordinator. And in the most clutch situation, clinging onto a lead, they get a punt blocked, and Carolina goes and takes the lead and makes it a ball game. You talk about warts, you talk about problems for the Texans. It's probably red zone offense, too much dependency on the kicker. D'Amico would say big plays on defense. I don't think that's as concerning, but you watch this game, you watch the playoffs, you have a history of watching the playoffs. The warts that you have in the regular season, they appear in the clutch. And they did for the Rams, and the Rams were able to get bailed out because, observation 5, a great QB, a clutch QB can wipe away everything. Wise man once told me it is all about the quarterback. The Rams were on the edge of disaster. Matthew Stafford, after starting out 8 for 8, he was banged up. He was not accurate. He didn't look good. Boom. He focuses out. I don't know if he did a smelling salt or something like that, but he goes out there and he looks elite. He looks like an MVP candidate like he was, and he wiped it away. So those are the 5 obs from game 1. Inferior home field advantage from an inferior ball club, big impact. This 4th down shit is absolutely insane. It completely changed the momentum of this game. It's kind of a theme throughout the week. Bryce Young, good quarterback, not the hold off on the bus thing. Now that they're starting to build a squad around him, the warts can appear in the clutch, and a great QB can overcome anything that we say before. So those are the observations from game 1. And I thought it was a hell of a game, and there was plenty more where that came from. We'll get to game 2 in a sec. First, let's go to Z chat.
Swarm.
Frank Z says, great stat, LL. CJ has never lost a wild card. Browns 45-14, Chargers 32-12, belts to ass. Yeah, they've not only won in the wild card round, they've beat the other team's ass. Like, they've just completely beat their ass. So something will give. Mike Tomlin could lose his first playoff game, our first home Monday night game of his career. Mike Tomlin could win his first playoff game in nine seasons. The Texans could win their first road playoff game. The Texans could lose in the wild card round for the first time. There's a lot of streaks, a lot of impressive streaks. Something's got to give. Next game, which was last night. This was a banger. Bears versus Packers. Takeaway 1, the 4th down insanity. We are still looking at the 4th down insanity. You saw the Bears go for it on their own 30, which was absolutely insane. By the way, a bonus one that will reappear, the unpredictability of kicking, depending too much on kickers. I actually asked Nick Caley about that. We'll hear what Nick Caley had to say in a sec, but that's a bonus. McManus, absolute disaster. I think he probably had to move out of wherever the hell he lives in Green Bay today. That was a disaster. But the 4th down insanity continued. Chicago was able to overcome it, and Caleb Williams had that heroic throw, which I'll skip ahead to number 3. It does look kind of funny now. We got to admit. And shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring the video. Play the best DFS game that there is, more than, less than. Use it as your scoring app. Shout out to Sleeper. And if you haven't started Sleeper yet, download the Sleeper app. You'll love it. And use the promo code LOCKER to get 100% up to $100 on the deposit. The CJ Stroud, Caleb Williams little bro moment where CJ talked to him like he was a 15-year vet. It is kind of funny now. It does look a little bit funny now. And it does feel like Caleb Williams has kind of matured a little bit, but it did travel a little bit funny. I think we can even admit that. Thought 2, though, as I talked about earlier, the 2-year QB window, thought that the teams that drafted at the top of the draft in 2023 and 2024, they're very pleased. If you had a top pick, draft pick the year before, you're screwed. If you have it this year, outside of Fernando Mendoza, you might be screwed. So the 2-year QB window in 2023, 2024, it's shining nicely. The next thought is the assistant OC exposure. You see Ben Johnson leaves and Detroit kind of falls apart. Now, some will look at their offensive stats and say, look, it wasn't the same because Ben Johnson is able to overcome recklessness on fourth down because he's such a good play caller and he's good at getting the most out of guys. They can't do that without him there. That's why Detroit's already fired their OC. So the immediate impact of an offensive minded coach impacting the quarterback, kind of reviving the quarterback, it was on display. And then thought 5, Al Michaels called a good game. I didn't think I would say this. Al Michaels actually called a good game. If we're going to criticize him when he's doing bad, I thought Al Michaels actually called a good game. Still some GOAT stuff from Al Michaels. He turned back the clock a little bit. Dare I say, Al Michaels flipped the switch in the playoffs. I thought he called a good game. I really did. To be fair to him, we are localizing the observations. We'll get to Sunday's games. But first, let's hear a little bit from old Nick Caley. Nick. I'm worried about him, and it's not necessarily tomorrow night. I'm a little bit worried about old Nick Caley, but I'm not necessarily worried about him tomorrow. But beyond that, perhaps. I'll explain that in a second. First, let's hear Nick Caley talking about field goal dependency. Because I think we've seen it. We've seen it in every playoff game so far. And really, you could say the last game of the regular season, like the unpredictability of even the best kickers it's been on display. You saw Chris Boswell miss an extra point that would have cost the Steelers their season. And this is a guy who's used to kicking in that stadium, the Steelers kicker by way of Rice. Misses the extra point, which would have ended their season had Baltimore's kicker not missed a chip shot. Then you see what happened with McManus in Green Bay. The impact of that ended Green Bay's season. Then you see the Jags. Like, all they do is talk about how great the kicker is for the Jags. He misses a field goal, which was one of the differences in the games, on top of the dumbassery that goes on fourth down. So you had that. Philadelphia missed an extra point, or else they would have just needed a field goal. If they make that extra point, Philadelphia is just going for a field goal at the end of the game instead of needing a touchdown. So Fairbairn's been great, but relying on kickers, it's very, very dangerous. Even the best kickers. And when you have a kicker who ties the record for most field goals in a season, it speaks to what your offensive line is. So I asked Nick Caley about that, and I also asked him like how it hits with the Fairbairn thing. I actually like this answer from Nick Caley. Here's what old Nick had to say. Nick.
He's had obviously a record-setting season, but the last time that a game was played on this field, you saw the wacky stuff that happened with kickers. Is there like you kind of want to avoid putting it in the kicker's foot in a situation like this?
I mean, I have a lot of faith in Amy. You know, obviously, the perfect thing is we'd like to score touchdowns every single time. Obviously, got a lot of faith in him. I mean, he's made big kicks. You know, and I have all the faith in the world in Amy. I would obviously like to just finish with touchdowns every single time. That's the easy, simple, obvious answer. So if we could do that, that would be great.
I'm not being trite. Is it, as an offensive coordinator, when you see a kicker have the record for most field goals in the season, is it kind of like, damn, like, how does that hit you?
I'm thankful we have him. I'm thankful that we have him. He's come through for us. I've told him a couple times, man, I wish I would have, we could have not had you have to go back quite as far on some of these. But, obviously it's a team sport, and we always want to finish with 7. But I also know we have a great kicker in him too. And I mean, honestly, he's amazing, and he's had a great year, and he's helped our team so much, and I'm thankful that we have him.
Yeah, and it's really kind of a difficult thing because it's not to take anything away from Fairbairn. He's been great. The Texans aren't where they're at without Fairbairn, but the playoffs are different. The weather's different. He's kicking outdoors. Like if the Texans are to make a run, you look at where Fairbairn will be kicking. He'll be kicking cold ass Pittsburgh, cold ass New England, And then depending what happens in Broncos Bills, it's either going to be cold ass Denver or Buffalo. And that's getting ahead. I'm just laying out where he'll be kicking. You don't want to rely on it too much. And I think we saw examples of that throughout the weekend. And you see it all the time in the playoffs. Gary Anderson with the Vikings. He didn't miss a kick all year. And then all of a sudden, boom, conference championship, he misses it. And all of a sudden we got to watch the Dirty Birds play John Elway instead of Randy Moss and the Vikings. Kind of screwed all of the football fans. It sucked. Let's continue the localized wild card obs in a sec. First, let's go to Z Chat. My man Evan is in the building.
Swarm.
3-piece from Evan. He says, I'm in Pittsburgh, Landry, in enemy territory. Enjoy that, man. Tell me how many pajama pants you see. There's a lot of pajama pants out there in Pittsburgh, as my boy King Carmen pointed out. He says we need all the good vibes tomorrow. He says he's with all 3 of his cousins, and they're all Steeler fans. Interesting. Should be fun, though. It's a good spot. CD says Caleb get Johnson, Trevor got Liam, CJ gets Nick. Oh man, why you got to do it like that?
Nick.
Yep, he's got D'Amico though, and he's got a good defense. So maybe that can be what they got going there. And that's enough to overcome it. He doesn't have to overcome poor defense. Let's continue the localized obs here. We're one sleep away from Texans-Steelers on Monday night. It's gonna be awesome. Divisional round has been phenomenal. So we started out the morning today, a little Duval action. The Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Bills. Bills escape with a 27-24 dub. Right off the top, this is a constant theme. The fourth down insanity equals a loss. Jacksonville being overly aggressive and having no feel for this game. We knew what this game was going to be. There's certain times where maybe you anticipate it. Like if it's 4th and 1 against Kansas City and you've already been aggressive on that field like Bill O'Brien in 2019 and it's 4th and 1 and you're up, okay, maybe you can go for it. But this is going to be a slugfest. We knew this. So Jacksonville gets to the 8. It's 4th and 2 and they decide to go for it. And instead of taking the 3 points, they don't. And then they get a break at the end of the first half. They have to kick a longer field goal, and they miss it. But if they would have just been normal instead of overly recklessly aggressive, then this is perhaps a tie game, and maybe we're talking about something different. But as it is, Jacksonville loses, and it's just this 4th down insanity. It's not analytics. Analytics has become a word that's used for decision. There's no analytics that says this. Analytics cannot be one thing. It's not. If you're looking at one resource for analytics, first of all, you're probably ignoring variables, but it's also just not. A lot of times it's just about feel. Like this didn't make sense. Like even when they first originally spotted it as a first down, I said that's dumb as hell. It's stupid in this game, in this situation, and it ended up costing them a loss. I don't think too many people have their feelings hurt about that. Thought too. And I thought about this in the middle of this game. Like, is Josh Allen going to be able to hold up? We saw Justin Herbert. Like, Justin Herbert got broken today. He's been getting broken all year. But Josh Allen, he had a banged up, I think, knee or ankle. He had to get checked for a concussion. He hit his hand on a helmet. He was getting effed up. He twisted his knee. And he's going to be going on the road for most likely all of his playoff games. Like, is Josh Allen going to be able to hold up? I mean, he's beat to hell. This is not the same Bills that we're used to seeing. And I know I've had a healthy fear for the Buffalo Bills, especially the possibility of going to Buffalo, which was eliminated by the Texans Week 18 dub. But I don't know if Josh Allen can hold up with the way this is going. He's getting absolutely destroyed in a big way. And Jacksonville has a good defense. Now he's going to think about this. Think about this. He's going to have to go to Jacksonville, or he went to Jacksonville. Now he's going to have to go to Denver. Denver's one of the best defenses in the league. They pressure the quarterback at the top of the league. He's going to have to go to Denver and play them. I don't know if he can hold up. Thought 3, this was some awful officiating. I mean, you had some terrible moments in this game. Giving Jacksonville 1 second at the end of the first half, that was suspect. You had them call a touchdown on Josh Allen run at the end. A guy's like 20 yards away and he calls it a touchdown. It was nowhere near that. There were a lot of bad calls in this, like just blatant misses. And it was awful. We did have replay assist correct some calls, which I think was good. Replay assist was on point, but there was some awful officiating in this game. Next one, the kicking lessons. We talked about this going back to Green Bay, kicking lessons. Like this is like they start completely gassing up Jacksonville's kicker every time Jacksonville gets the ball, and my man misses a field goal at the end of the first half after they passed up the chip shot. Even the best kickers you can't overly depend on. It goes back to what I asked Nick Caley about and what the Texans have done at a historic level. So relying on kickers is a dangerous lifestyle when it comes to the playoffs, and the Texans do it a big way. Jacksonville, no different than that. Next one, and this is just me basically trading my media trading cards. But Romo and Nance are rough, man, and I like to separate Nance from Romo because he is the Houston guy. At this point, I think Nance has gotten worse too. It hurts me to say. I think Nance has gotten worse too. I think Tony Romo's made it worse. They talk about iron sharpening iron. I think dog crap sharpens dog crap on that broadcast. Jim Nance is not the same. It is bad. It is really, really bad. Screwhead 1414. Shout out to you on the chat. Next, localized wildcard ob. This one was, God, I don't know how they keep doing it, but they're doing it again, and they get hit in the nuts again. The San Francisco 49ers, DeMeco Ryans' mentor, Kyle Shanahan, who we know very well here, along with Robert Saleh. The injuries that they've had are absolutely insane. Yeah, they lost George Kittle to a torn Achilles today. They're already playing without Nick Bosa. They're already playing without Fred Warner. Garrett Wallow plays significant snaps for them on defense. Garrett Wallow could barely play significant snaps on defense for the Texans in 2021 and 2022. Think about that. In the David Coley, Lovie Smith, Garrett Wallow couldn't even get run. San Francisco is so depleted that Garrett Wallow is playing out there for at linebacker. You have Fred Warner and Nick Bosa in a suite. It's a disaster. They have Brandon Ayuk, who they really haven't had all year. They're paying him like a number one receiver. He's not playing. Their number two receiver, Ricky Pearsall's not playing. Trent Williams is on a bad hamstring. They were without Brock Purdy for a large chunk. Like, I don't know how they've overcome this adversity. It's been one of Kyle Shanahan's better coaching jobs, and they get to play a team that they're familiar with. By the way, 3 out of 4 teams remaining in the NFC divisional round are from the NFC West. 3 out of 4. San Francisco, Rams, and Seahawks. 3 out of 4 in a division in the final 4 in the NFC. That's crazy. That's crazy. That kind of makes you think about what Jonathan Gannon was going up against. I'm not saying it's like the wrong decision, but damn, what a tough division that is. Next thought, I think the Eagles are on fumes. I don't know how much longer you can do this Sirianni thing. Like, we know how this is ending, right? The windows are small, but that vibe, it's going to blow up. I think you can make a case that it already has. If I were the Eagles, I would fire Nick Sirianni and I would bring John Harbaugh back to Philadelphia, where he used to be their special teams coach. That's what I would do. I think they need a new vibe. I think they need a better coach. Sirianni's done a good job. The record speaks for itself, but this is not going to end well. This is just not going to end well at this point. They're on fumes. A.J. Brown's not talking to the media. He's already mad at Jalen Hurts. Saquon Barkley is not what he once was. This team, they're rolling on fumes, and they're about to have to pay some guys. It's going to get tougher. They're on fumes. Thought 3, what up, cuz? I learned this today. I learned this yesterday at Texans practice. Man, it seems like it was a long time ago with how much football we've watched. But Trent Brown and Alfred Collins are first cousins. I did not know this. I like Alfred Collins out of University of Texas. I think he's an underrated player. He's doing a really good job in San Francisco for Robert Saleh's squad. So his brother or his dad is the brother of Trent Brown's mom. You learn something new every day. I've always liked Alfred Collins, but now I look at it even crazier that his first cousin is Big Trent. By the way, SNL interviewed Trent Brown. That interview was posted yesterday. If you want to go check that out on the SNL channel with myself and Cody Stutz, we'll be live at 2, special edition Manana. Next one, I think this was encouraging, I guess. Maybe not surprising. But the pipeline game plan was insane. D'Amico Ryans and Robert Saleh, they both run the same style of defense. Robert Saleh had a hell of a game plan. They had a hell of a game plan. Dare I say they were swarming. Robert Saleh, excellent game plan. If I were a team, I would consider hiring Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh deserves to be a head coach. He had to put up with a lot of crap with the Jets. I've always been a big Robert Saleh guy. Hell of a game plan by him. These are the type of performances that get you that second opportunity. He needs to be selective, though, when it comes to that. But we've seen D'Amico Ryans put together some really good game plans, specifically in the wild card round. Robert Saleh did the same thing, and he did so without two of the best players in the league at their position, and even more injuries than that. So you kind of saw the pipeline game plan there, because that's what we're doing. We're localizing. And then the next one, I'm a running back guy. I always talk about the impact of running backs. I got nothing but respect for the running back position. Christian McCaffrey, the trade the San Francisco 49ers made for Christian McCaffrey just completely flipped everything in the direction they were going. I know Brock Purdy gets a lot of attention, but the Christian McCaffrey trade, and you look at what he's able to do and the impact that he's had for a few years now, absolutely insane. And on the flip side, the running back position, and why I like to draft young running backs is because it can go away like that. Saquon Barkley last year, historic season, and now suddenly he's kind of lost a step for whatever reason, and the Eagles are nowhere near the same team. There's a lot of reasons why the Eagles are going home and there's going to be a new champion this year. The fact that Saquon Barkley is not what he was last year is a big one. There was a big masking element there. And you look at what Christian McCaffrey's been able to do and what they've been able to overcome. This is the tale of the running back position right here. So that's the game 4. We have one more coming up in a second. But I was really impressed with the backs. We're one sleep away from the Texans taking on the Steelers. Let's hear something else from Nick Caley. So I asked him about the old school nature of D'Amico Ryans and how D'Amico Ryans says that, this is going to be an old school game. I just wonder if that's an approach for an offensive coordinator to have. Like for defense, okay, old school, whatever. Offense, especially with this team, with the difficulty of running the ball and how Pittsburgh can stop that, like, don't you kind of want to take the top off things with the Steelers potentially? I asked Nick Caley about that. Here's what he said.
As an OC, like we hear, old school football, it's gonna be old school football. Do you kind of, as an offensive coordinator, you probably would like to change that and shift it and get off to a good start. So is it important to kind of not necessarily anticipate that as an OC?
Explain your question. In terms of, I like good plays. I like efficient plays.
It's old school. It's low scoring. All that.
Yeah, we want to move the ball forward, get first downs, and score points. And does that require us taking some shots? Does that require us being able to throw the ball, run the ball? I mean, there's a variety of ways. What I want to do is be able to play clean, play at our best, play really good fundamental football. Got to run the ball well. We got to throw the ball consistently, protect, do all those things, take care of the football. I think it really embodies everything. And I'm not trying to give you a roundabout answer. I just think every game's a little different. Sometimes you go into games and you think, man, it's going to go this way, or here's the ideal scenario that I think this is how I think the game's going to get played. And sure enough, you're a quarter into it, 2 drives into it, and things change, and you gotta change with it. So I just want us to go out and be ready to go from the jump. I want us to go play our best football. I want us to play with good fundamentals. I want us to play with great effort and technique and urgency, and I want us to continue to build. That's what I want us to do when we kick this thing off on Monday night.
My main thing is I think there's a balance between being conservative and leaning on your defense, but my fear is that they try to force the run when it can't be, when it's not an ideal opponent to do it against, and that's really my thing. There's big trust issues with Nick Caley. There's big trust issues with Nick Caley. We talk about the rookies and all that. There's big trust issues, and there's also trust issues with the Texans' offensive line. And that's something I want to get into on the back end of this final game, because this final game is the one that matters most when it comes to the Texans, because you now have the path is laid out. Obviously, they got to take care of business tomorrow, but you know what you're playing, where you're playing to go. It's not a mystery if thing, and that's kind of the beauty. That's the good and the bad about being the last game. You get a shorter week, but you know who you're going to play. You know what the path is, and quite frankly, I'll be honest. I think it's an ideal path for them. I think it's an ideal path. Now, does that mean that they win tomorrow? No. Does that mean that they win in New England if they win tomorrow? No. But if you laid out the path and this were the way things were going to go, it was either go to New England or host Buffalo. I think you feel confident about either one. But there is some give or take when it comes to a potential matchup about New England. Let's talk about the New England game and the takeaways. And there were some consistent themes throughout, including takeaway one. The Buckeye, he schooled the Michigan man. Mike Vrabel completely schooled Jim Harbaugh. And I didn't know the stupidity of going for it on fourth down got to Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh turned down 3 points right off the top. Might have been a different game had he not done that. But he turned down the points. And I thought this was a coaching clinic by Mike Vrabel and his staff. There was a time late in the game where it's still an uphill battle, but you got 7 minutes left. You're the Chargers. You're down 2 possessions, and they're substituting on offense. Like they're literally substituting and taking off 40 seconds and allowing New England to sub. Like it was an absolute disaster. The Greg Roman thing, the Buckeye got the best of the Michigan man in this one. Next question. I don't know how the Chargers were even here. Chargers had, I think, 250 offensive line combinations. That's not an exaggeration. I think they ended up with 25 offensive line combinations this year. Justin Herbert was beat to crap. He was beat to crap. That was an absolute gutsy performance by Justin Herbert this season. And if they don't figure something out, he's going to be out of the league pretty soon. I saw Dane Brugler bring up Andrew Luck through 6 years. I mean, Justin Herbert is getting roughed up. They got to figure something out there. Because Ladd McConkey was a hell of a receiver last year, and for whatever reason, like they can't get him the ball. It's not whatever reason they can't block. Now it naturally gets fixed because you get Rashawn Slater and you get Ott back next year. When you lose 2 really good tackles early in the season and one that doesn't even play, I mean, you're kind of behind. You're kind of behind there for a little bit, but I think it's impressive that the Chargers were even in this situation. I think it's impressive. Takeaway 3, and this is, again, getting ahead of ourselves, but the New England offensive line has serious wreck potential. The Chargers were able to do it at times. They weren't able to completely take advantage of it, but that offensive line, the Texans defensive line, if they go to New England, they could F up that Patriots O-line in a bad way. In a really bad way. Now, on the other hand, though, the New England defense, and specifically the way in which they stunt, could have a real bad impact on the Texans' offensive line, which we'll talk about in a second. But takeaway 4, I think this is the ideal opponent. Does that mean you win? No. But you'd much rather go to New England than Denver. Of all the realistic scenarios, you'd much rather do that. Some would say maybe you'd rather do that than face Buffalo, although Buffalo is dinged up. And they're going to be even more dinged up if they get past Denver, specifically their quarterback. But takeaway 5, And again, this is something that we'll probably emphasize. The coaching mismatch between the Texans and New England, it might be massive. It might be incredibly massive. And that's not a good thing for the Texans. I think D'Amico Ryans can hold his own with his defense. And I think they can definitely wreck the Patriots offensive line. But as far Mike Vrabel against Nick Caley, and Nick Caley, who idolizes Josh McDaniels, and I think he idolizes everything Patriot, they might take Nick Caley to the woodshed. And they run a lot of stunts. We saw Seattle with the stunts. The Texans, the ability to handle stunts has been one of the bigger question marks about this offensive line. And you look at Josh McDaniels versus Nick Caley, D'Amico, Vrabel, I think that kind of cancels out. But the coaching mismatch could be massive. And Nick Caley might be starstruck. He might be taking an autograph book with him to New England, quite frankly. I know he idolized McDaniel's dad back in the day. That might be massive, but we're getting ahead of ourselves there. But those are the localized wild card odds. Playoff coverage, by the way, presented by the greatness of TDECU. TDECU.org/Texans. Get that fresh new Texans debit card with the fresh logo. Cody Stutes has got it. You should get it. If you don't want it, get the Buckies. Get the U of H. They got it all, and they got something for you. They're going to guide you through the process. It's an honor and privilege to be a TDECU customer. And you also get 15% off the Texans team shop with that debit card. TDECU.org/Texans. TDECU, the official sponsor of playoff coverage on SNL. So let's talk about that O-line. Nick Caley talked about the state of the Texans offensive line. My concern is they haven't had a test like the Kansas City one since playing them, because they've played 3 home games and they went to LA. And I don't know what that looks like. I feel like there's too much comfort for my liking when it comes to this Texans offensive line. But let's hear from old Nick. Let's hear what old Nick has to say about it. Old Nick Caley about this Texans offensive line. I think he's feeling good about it too.
Nick.
I think they've gelled in a lot of ways. I think the most communication, cohesiveness, seeing the game through the same set of eyes. Jake sets the table. They've done a really good job. The focus has been on communication, throughout the season. And I think we've done it better and better each week. We focus it on practice. Cole Popovich does an outstanding job with those guys. I think he's a hell of a coach. And I'm really proud of how far along those guys have come. And we've had some moving. You're right. We've had some different people in there at times. But I feel like we're playing our best football, and those guys are continuing to get better. And I'm really proud of those guys.
Yeah, they've improved. They've done a good job of shuffling and handling what they can handle. But I think the ultimate test is when you go on the road, cold, loud. That's where you really figure out how they hold up. And the good news is that you're graded on a curve because of the defense. This is a defensive team. You have a defensive-minded coach. And I think a lot of times there's some give or take there. I think Nick Caley kind of has to reel it in sometimes because of that mindset. That's not me pulling it out of my ass. I think that's a fact. But we'll see how it goes. Eventually, you're going to have to make some plays. You're going to have to figure something out, and you haven't had that test. So I asked Nick Caley about that. Here's what old Nick had to say about the Kansas City test, and if he thinks that they're up for this challenge in Pittsburgh.
Nick.
After the Kansas City game, you talked about working on the operation and the loud stadium and all that. Is this the first true, tangible test that kind of duplicates what that was like, given the fact that you had 3 home games and then you went to LA between?
It's a hell of an environment for football in Pittsburgh, right? I mean, it's one of the greatest environments you got. I mean, it's they're always loud. Renegade will be playing from sticks. I mean, it's going to be it's a hell of an atmosphere for football. And if you love football, I mean, this is going to be great. So, it's going to be loud. It's going to be crazy, passionate fans. We just got to go. We got to play consistent. We got to have a clean operation like we always do, and we've improved that. And we just got to keep that going. But yeah, it's going to be it's going to be paramount for us to get out there and get off to a good start, get out of the huddle, get our cleats set, and get ready to roll.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, that sounds good. That's awesome. Great environment, all that. It's going to be electric. It's going to be crazy. Tomorrow's going to be an insane day. Get it started. Me and Cody will be streaming. I don't know how long we'll go. Normally we go at 4, obviously. A lot of but we'll go a little bit earlier, a little bit longer shelf life. So get over to the SNL channel tomorrow, and we'll get you fired up. We'll get you ready to go. We got one sleep. I mean, and if you would want, like in a perfect scenario, you would want this game to look like the last game we watched. You just completely wreck Pittsburgh's offensive line. Aaron Rodgers looks helpless, and you advance, and then next thing you know, you go to New England. It could go a number of ways. I think that's kind of shown us. And this the inferior team having the home field advantage, especially in a place like Pittsburgh, with the veteran quarterback and Aaron Rodgers, something's got to give. Just like we started this off earlier, talking about, something's got to give. It's got to go one way or another. There's going to be a streak that ends. Either Mike Tomlin's going to lose his first ever Monday Night Football game at home, or D'Amico and CJ are going to lose for the first time in the wild card round. Mike Tomlin and the Steelers could win their first playoff game since 2016. D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud and the Texans' entire organization could win a road playoff game for the first time. There's a lot of things that can happen. There's going to be a lot of trends. Beauty of it is it's going to be prime time. There's going to be towels waving. A lot of the booms are going to get in their feels because they're going to see Pittsburgh on the other side, the H-Town booms. And it's going to be a test. If you win, you get New England. We know that now. We learned that. If you win, you got New England in the divisional round. Again, Nick Caley might have an autograph book with Josh McDaniels. I know they work together, but he used to idolize his pops. Might have an autograph book out there in New England. Might be starstruck. I do worry about the coaching disadvantage and the stunts. But before we have to worry about that, before we have to lay that out, they got to win a game in Pittsburgh. First time this organization's ever won a road game. That's where we're at. That's what it's going to look like. I think they win the game. I don't think there's any excuse. I think the defense is a superpower. I do think, and we'll talk about this on SNL, I do think there are going to be some guys that are going to be challenged. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be very aggressive. And I think the offensive line, hopefully the offensive line has improved from the last time they went in an atmosphere like this. See Kansas City, because this is a D-line that can punish you. This is not, it might be a meh football team. You might look at it and say, yeah, thank God they're playing Pittsburgh. If we were just focusing, like if we were talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers and we were just looking at the D-line versus the Texans O-line, they're probably a bottom three team that you would want to see. Not just in the playoffs, maybe in the entire league. And what's been the biggest concern for the Texans recently, and what's been the biggest concern for the Texans in over the course of franchise history? It's always been the O-line. It always comes down to the offensive line. There's been times where they've been able to overcome it, but it's always been the offensive line. So if anything can wreck this season, it's the offensive line. If anything can get you to go on a run, we know what it is. It's the superpower. We've been saying it since training camp. It's the defense. The season went the way that we expected it to go. Now, did we expect Jacksonville to win the division? Probably not. But it went the way it was supposed to go. You're trying to take that next step. The defense is going to be really good. There's questions about the offense. There's questions about the offensive line, although there was improvement. And you're right where you thought you would be, playing in the wild card round with a chance to do something that they've never done. They're there. These games aren't easy. But quite frankly, D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud, more so D'Amico Ryans, has made them look easy. D'Amico Ryans has not just won wild card games. He has beat the other team's ass. He has beat the other team's ass in wild card rounds. Killed them. Made a veteran quarterback in Joe Flacco, who was the comeback player of the year that year, look pedestrian, and he made Justin Herbert look terrible, throw more interceptions than he did all season. This is Aaron Rodgers. But it's not your Pops is Aaron Rodgers. It's the ghost of Aaron Rodgers. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be a fun time. Fun day tomorrow.
Swarm.
How many people are taking off work for this? Are you taking off Tuesday? Who knows? Evan says, not trying to hear Renegade Caley. Lock in, bum. When I'm locked in, he's got to lock in. He ain't got no choice. CD says, this is an example. Field goal is better than going on fourth. Yeah. I don't want to over depend on the kicker, but this fourth down shit, going for it on 4th and 3 from the 8 or fourth and 2 or whatever from your own 30. It's ridiculous. I'm glad D'Amico doesn't do it. I'm glad he's zigging while everyone else is zagging. I think it's actually a good thing. It's not analytics, dude. It's just stupidity. It's not analytics. There's nothing analytic that goes about it. These percentages are simp. They're simp in Costco bulk. It's pathetic, and I'm so glad. That's the thing that I'm most thankful for when it comes to D'Amico Ryans. That's the thing that I am most thankful for, is that they don't do that fourth down bullshit. It's pathetic. ESG Soccer says, congratulations on your success, young man. You hold your head up, all right? Is that from the Jags lady? Is that what you're talking about? The Jags press member or whatever? Is that what that's from? I don't know. I think there's got to be a joke to that. Yeah, that was weird. I thought it was strange. I thought it was kind of bad, but there's a lot of media types that were upset. There's also like contrarians who are acting like there's nothing wrong with that. You can't do that. That's bad. I know there's a lot of Homer stuff, but that's just bad. I think that's what you're talking about. You can let me know in the comments, ESG. Truth says, not just O-line, but CJ. I don't trust CJ. Look, CJ doesn't have to be phenomenal in this game. He can be 2010 or 2011 Mark Sanchez, and they can win this game. We'll see it. We'll see how he handles it. He's got an arsenal. He's got a hell of a lot more. He's not bringing a plastic knife to a gunfight like he was last year when it comes to the receivers. Yeah, he's got to elevate his play. He's gonna have to step it up, because next week, for as much as if they do win this game, they got a quarterback playing at an MVP level with one of the better OCs in the league. He's not a good head coach, but a really good OC. And quite frankly, Josh McDaniels is basically the 5-star steakhouse of this system. He's the 5-star steakhouse of this system. Nick Caley is basically fill in the blank. I won't even try to make an analogy. Maybe next week, if we're previewing the Texans versus the Patriots, I'll do that. I'm not going to do it right now. He looks up to him too. So there we go. Yeah, got to see what happens with CJ. You shouldn't trust the offense. But it was a hell of a week. This is one of my favorite weeks. Divisional round is my favorite because you get two pieces, kind of get the fat trimmed a little bit. But this is some good stuff. NFL playoffs over everything. NFL playoff coverage once again. Presented by the greatness of TDECU. Shout out to TDECU. Do what Cody did. Get that Texans debit card with that fresh logo. TDECU.org/Texans. You get 15% off team gear as a result of that. Also, Sleeper. Shout out to Sleeper. Greatness that is Sleeper. We're telling Pops his picks this week. He thinks Nico Collins is going to have higher than the reception. And you can check out his pick. I forget my Pops' pick on this. I posted it earlier. I'll post it on the community page. Actually, I have it right here. Let's get the Pops Sleeper pick here. Image. Here we go. All right, so he's got Dalton Schultz over 43.5 yards, more than 43.5 yards. He's got Nico Collins, longest reception, over 25. He's got Cade Stover with basically a catch, higher than 8.5 yards, and he's got TJ Watt higher than a half sack. That's an 11.921. He's been on fire. Won another one today. Download that sleeper app. You'll get a 100% match up to $100. If you don't play, use it as a scoring app. You will not regret it. Trailing pops this week. There you go. Right there. Yeah, that goes. Go win some money. Appreciate everyone for rolling through. We are one sleep away from the wild card round. Truth again says, do you think they will bench him if he does bad? No, CJ Stroud's not getting benched. He can throw 9 interceptions. He's not getting benched. Although Davis Mills, by the way, did not travel with the team. He's going to fly commercial. So Davis Mills is one of us. They say he's questionable for the game. He's just got to get there. But he didn't leave today. He's got some personal matters going on. So there you go. I think he's got a baby coming down. We'll see. But no scenario where CJ gets benched. Appreciate y'all for rolling through. We're one sleep away. Talk to you on SNL Manana post-game show right after, right here as well. Subscribe, like, ride along. Always remember when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. My God, what a super wild card weekend it was. And they saved the best for last, or did they? We shall see. Appreciate y'all for rolling through.
We the post of the city too. Landlocked, got the game in the headlock. Localized every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not too. Plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days, opinions to give, we got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up, we number one.